F of forbidden love, Z of zombies, clock time. The wind was hot and dusty. The sun, a burning circle in the sky, was reflected in the broken windows of abandoned buildings. In Texas, on the border with Mexico, the outbreak had devastated and spread like an unstoppable virus. The dead walked like pale shadows, like hungry and twisted creatures. Their eyes shone with an unnatural light, and their bodies dragged through the streets. The living, the few who remained, were hiding in improvised shelters, struggling to survive. In the midst of the unleashed chaos, the traveler was there. He had arrived at the last moment, and now he wandered through the deserted streets. His sad eyes had seen too much, and his heart was tired. But still the sun shone in the blue sky. The wind, like a burning sigh, was entangled among the ruins of what was once a city. The broken windows, like blind eyes, looked at the desolate landscape. The sun, a glowing disk, rose above the horizon, painting the ruins with golden and reddish tones. It was a world on the edge of the abyss, where life and death danced a macabre dance. In Texas, on the border with Mexico, the outbreak had begun. A ruthless virus, older than humanity itself, had been released from his prison. It spread like an inextinguishable fire, consuming everything on its way. The undead wandered impunely, their bodies and their souls trapped in a dark limbo. They walked through the streets, like pale shadows, like hungry and twisted creatures. His eyes, once human, now shone with an unnatural light, an insatiable thirst. The living, the few who remained, were hiding in improvised shelters. They clung to hope like a fragile thread. Every day was a fight for survival, a battle against the inevitability of death. The hearts were beating with fear, with despair. But also with love. In the midst of the unleashed chaos, the traveler appeared. No one knew where he came from or who he really was. He had arrived at the last moment, as if destiny had guided him through the ruins. His face was marked by the scars of the past, his sad eyes had seen too much. But still, he carried with him a spark of hope. He wandered through the deserted streets, his steps resounding in silence. I was looking for answers, a reason to move on. In his backpack he carried an old book, his yellow pages full of forgotten words. They said that in times of crisis, forbidden love flourished. And he, the traveler, longed to find that love in the midst of desolation. One evening, while the sun was hiding behind the rubble, he met her. A brave woman, with storm eyes and hair wrapped up by the wind. She also had scars, but her smile was like a ray of sunshine in the dark. Her name was Isabella. Isabella and the traveler shared stories alongside an improvised fireplace. They talked about better times, broken dreams and the fragility of life. His hands rubbed, and in that moment, the world seemed to stop. Love forbidden by denial grew among them, like a flower in a field of ashes. But time was a ruthless enemy. The dead were still choking, the threat always present. Isabella and the traveler knew that their love was ephemeral, that every kiss could be the last. But they also knew that even if the world collapsed, their love, now, would be eternal. So, in the midst of the cataclysm, they promised each other. Their hearts were beating together, like two souls destined to meet in darkness. And as the sun shone on the blue sky, Isabella and the traveler embraced each other, challenging fate and writing their own love story in a world that, fading between the rubble and shadow, found refuge in the warmth of their arms, in the forbidden kiss that sealed their fate. And where evil reigned, love flourished like a blessed rose. Isabella and the traveler embarked on a journey that became an odyssey through the remnants of the world they once knew, and faced unimaginable dangers and discovered secrets that challenged logic and reason. The old book that the traveler carried with him became his guide. His pages, full of symbols, seemed to whisper hidden truths. Isabella, with her sharp mind and her courage, deciphered the riddles that stood before them. They discovered that the virus was not just a disease, but a manifestation of a break in reality itself. The traveler was talking and Isabella, initially skeptical, began to see the connections. The non-dead, trapped between dimensions, were like broken pieces of a cosmic puzzle. Together, they sought answers because they believed there would be a way to restore reality. Isabella and the traveler embarked on a desperate quest. They encountered other survivors, some allies and other enemies. At every step, as the world continued to collapse, his love strengthened. They hugged each other, their lips met in an eternal kiss. And so, in the midst of the disaster, his love became a legend. Isabella and the traveler knew that somewhere in the universe, their story would last, like a blessed rose in a field of ashes.